Hello, I am the current commenter, and this is my first attempt at a response video. It is a response to the academic agent's immigration video. I must confess my production values are considerably lower than his, and I do not claim to be an economics academic at a British university. My only economics qualification is an A-level. And a good one at that. Actually, my best one, but let's not go into that. My main issues with the video are that the academic agent underestimated the tax burden on UK taxpayers, for he only looked at income tax. So, I do not have issue, however, with the academic agent taking the government's public spending and dividing it by the number of people. Even if people do not claim benefits, or whatever it is now called, they still benefit from the government spending on policing and infrastructure. The academic agent then looked at income tax brackets and concluded that people have to earn over £41,000 to be net taxpayers. At first glance, this looks quite accurate. However, worrying, because the mean earnings in the UK is only 28,700, and the median being 28,700. The similarity in these numbers suggests that the UK is quite there is quite a lot of income equality in the UK, because the mean is the total income divided by the number of people, and the median is if you lined up everyone in order of their income, you select the middle person. The mean is affected by people with incredibly high incomes, whereas the median is not. However, there are two quite important taxes that are quite easy to calculate: VAT and National Insurance contributions. The way VAT works in the UK is similar to sales tax in the US. However, the price in shops in the UK normally displays the price of the good after tax, so you don't have to multiply everything that you see in a shop by 1.2. However, it's not just the final sale that people have to pay VAT. It is every single stage in a goods production. So, there is a mine that mines iron ore. The company that is mining the ore has to pay 20% of the value of their sale to the government. Then a steel works buys the iron ore. It then produces steel. The steel works has to pay VAT on the iron and the coal to power it and supply the carbon for their steelworks, as well as on all the other minerals to make the relevant alloy that they're wanting. They can, however, claim back the VAT that they paid for the goods that they bought. This prevents the 20% expanding exponentially. However, is a bureaucratic nightmare and costs a lot to HMRC to do. So some might ask, how much money does VAT actually produce for the Exchequer? The VAT then is put on the car when a car manufacturer buys the engines, and then they also claim back the value of the VAT on the engine and charge 20% extra VAT on the consumer when they purchase it. The end result being the same as sales tax, but it's much more convoluted. Some goods are exempt from this, such as children's clothing and essential foodstuffs. Interestingly, biscuits are viewed as an essential food, so there is no VAT on them, unless they have chocolate. Chocolate biscuits do have VAT. Cakes, on the other hand, are exempt from VAT, even if they contain chocolate. National insurance contributions are a tax similar to income tax. However, the employer pays it instead of it automatically coming out of an employee's pay packet. There are other taxes that employers have to pay, which increase the cost of employing people and increasing their salaries, but they're a little harder to estimate. So we'll be concentrating on national insurance, as that is a famous tax that is easy to calculate. First, the way we estimate national insurance for someone is the threshold which an employer has to start paying national insurance is £8,632. The employer has to pay 20% of all salary they pay out above this threshold. So if someone earns £26,000, £1,000 more than the rate to start paying off your student loan, but we'll get into that another time. You'd do 26,000 minus 8,632, with that result multiplied by 0.2 or divided by 5, however you prefer to calculate 20%, which results in £3,873. So before training costs and such like costs of employing somebody to work £26,000, an employer would have to pay nearly £30,000. This is rounded to the nearest £1,000. So, for an employee to earn £26,000 before tax, they would have to be doing £30,000 worth of work for their employer. VAT in the UK presently is at 20%. It was at 17% before the financial crash, but the Conservative government raised it when they took power. It was meant to be a temporary measure, but it has stayed, and although it is higher than is possibly sensible, it is a nice round number. Since I can't find any data on the proportion of somebody's spending that is spent on goods and services with VAT, I have assumed that people spend 30% of their income on things that for tax purposes are classed as non-essentials. This is based off an old budgeting guideline of spend 50% on what you need, 30% on what you want, and leave 20% for your savings. The savings ratio in the UK is low and has been declining in recent years. In 2017, it was only 3.2%, down from 7% in 2016 and 10% in 2015. To estimate the amount of money somebody spends on VAT, I subtract income tax from their income, divide their after-tax earnings by the percentage of earnings spent on goods which have VAT, and then divide that by 5 or multiply it by 0.2. After including this estimate to the income of a net taxpayer or income, the net taxpayer falls to only £30,000, a £11,000 drop from what the academic agent estimated. Now, taxation is a drain on the economy in both a oversimplified economic model sense, where you assume an economy is like a bath, with things that increase GDP being the tap and things that reduce it being the drain. Tax is one of these drains. Now, let's look at the effect of the tax burden on someone that is a net zero taxpayer. Just looking at the taxes I mentioned above. The net taxpayer is earning £30,000, which means he is producing enough for his labour to be worth £34,000. His take-home pay is merely £26,500. This means this imaginary person spends, let's imagine this imaginary person spends 30% of their £2,650,000 on goods and services that have VAT, such as children's toys, electronics, clothes, menstrual products, and more than 3 chocolate biscuits. This would mean that they pay £1,590 of their spending goes to the government. This person, therefore, is working at above £34,000 of productivity, only receives £25,000 to choose what they want to do with. This £25,000 is what is the income of the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, since your spending in a shop is the shopkeeper's revenue. This net taxpayer is therefore only getting 73% of their productivity. So if they work for 8 hours a day, then for 5 hours and 52 minutes, they work for themselves. And for the remaining 2 hours and 8 minutes, they work for the government. Who wants to do 8 hours of unpaid labour a day? Well, other than the very charitable, I don't think that many. Although the net taxpayer earns above the mean income in the UK, they are still in the lowest rate of income tax. This overburdened tax slavery pales in comparison to that of those in a higher tax bracket. Let's look at those hard-working university vice-chancellors, who in the academic year of 2015 to 16 earned on average £24,000 each. The university is therefore on average paying £50,000 in national insurance contributions. So the average Vice-Chancellor is sucking up £29,000 of student fees. This is equivalent to the tuition fees paid by 32 students. Home students, that is. However, HMRC takes another 1,375, leaving the hard-working Vice-Chancellor with only £136,000, whereas the government is taking £153,000. The Vice-Chancellor then gets to do with what they will with that £136,000, assuming that they spend the same proportion of their income on goods and services that have VAT on them. Then the government would take £9,375. This leaves only £94,400 being spent on the actual economy. The £290,000 of student fees gets turned into £94,400 worth of goods, services and savings. Our Vice-Chancellor is therefore effectively spending 60% of their working hours working for the government and only 40% working for themselves. Imagine working away on an 8-hour day for 4 hours and 48 minutes for somebody else. To pull a feudal analogy, with the state being our lord protector and collector of dues, most people have to spend one day working for our lord and 3 days working for ourselves. Whereas those on higher incomes spend 3 days working for the Lord and only 2 working for themselves. Interestingly, unless somebody's pre-tax salary is over £54,000, then their employer pays higher taxes on the person than the person pays income tax. Food for thought. Thank you for listening, and I hope this helps people when they next have a discussion or hear on the news anything to do with national insurance contributions or taxes probably going up, but at some point might eventually change. Good night.